Johnson, the local boy, the Harlan native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grumbaugh there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Oscar 3-2 pitch. That one's roped into left field, and that's over the glove of Martin. Extra bases. And coming around third, being waved home, will be Riley Silva. He will score 7 RBIs for Gabe Swanson, and his second double of the afternoon.
There you go. Nebraska baseball, big today. They run rule Maryland after dropping the game on Friday night, 12-5. They come back. They win Saturday's game 7-2 and win game 3 after run ruling Maryland today, and they beat them 21-5. Nebraska now 21-23, getting closer to 500, 9-12 in the Big Ten. They got to be one of the 12 teams out of 18 teams to make the Big Ten tournament. They're 11th right now. It looks that they're pretty safe right now, but that was a nice win today.
I think they got to keep winning, though. I mean, they've shown the penchant to have pitching performance woes.
Right.
And then days their bats just go cold.
Yeah,
so.
well, I guess the thing that I like about this team and that I don't like is they tend to drop games. Like they'll lose game ones a lot and then come back and win the next 2. Or be in a situation where they're going to get, it looks really, really bad. They're going to get swept like Iowa and they win game 3. There is some fight in this team, but you wish they would fight sometimes earlier in the series.
Yeah. This team's kind of an enigma to me. They're very unpredictable. I don't know. There is capable of running off 15 of 18 and storming into a super regional as they are of losing 15 of 18, and everybody's talking about Will Bolt in a hot seat.
Yeah.
So they're fun to watch. I mean, the entertainment value is there. I hope they can get some more consistency and get things put together. And we don't need 21 runs every game. It'd be fun.
Well,
but
talk about consistency. Gabe Swanson, where has he been all year? 4 or 5 today, 7 RBIs. But obviously, you haven't even heard the name Gabe Swanson for a lot of this season. And you thought that he would have a big year. Jackson Brockett picks up the win, improves to 2-3 on the year. He allowed 5 runs, 2 of those earned, 4 hits over 5 innings. Nebraska reached the 10-plus run mark for the 7th time this season. So they are starting to pick it up with the bats. Next up, Kansas State on Tuesday. Then they have a 3-game series this weekend. Can't remember who it is. But then the Big Ten tournament starts May 20th through the 25th. At Schwab Field in Omaha. Minnesota is next week.
Yeah, I was going to say K-State, then 3 with Minnesota, then Creighton at home again, and then another. Like they've got the next 8 at Haymarket Park.
Yeah,
they got Michigan the weekend after, May 9th, 10th, and 11th before that final.
By the way,
season of the regular season.
We'll have John Bishop on the show coming up in about 15 minutes. Creighton baseball, since they lost to Nebraska, has won 8 in a row.
Yeah,
swept Villanova this weekend. Ed Service is retiring this year. I wonder if they get hot, maybe win, who knows, they get to Omaha. And that's not going to happen, but they win a couple series, or if they win, a regional, would he reconsider retiring? No.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, no.
No, he wouldn't. But
it's
still,
up to him. He might. I don't know, but
was it the players were so happy he was retiring that they just decided to play great? They're 27-11 or something like that.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those where I think part of it is probably the state of college athletics right now. I mean, he's a guy that is cut from the old cloth that has been around for 30 plus years.
You're right.
And now he's sitting here and he's got mommy and daddy of some guy that he wants to, bring in and try to coach up and
many coaches are just fed up with NIL and rev share.
Yeah.
They just don't want to deal with it because the first question from the parents in many, not all cases, but a lot of cases is, how much do I got to get?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I get the $6,000 or whatever it is for my college education. I know I get a college education. That's all great. What are you going to pay me? And I don't think, and he's old school. Ed Service is definitely old school. We can ask Bishop that question coming up in 15 minutes. Does NIL have something to do?
Nico Imalava, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I mean,
my buddy calls him, I am a Leva.
Yeah,
I'm going to
most
Leva.
people do now.
Yeah.
And then his brother is I am a Leva too. And his brother took, what was it? Like $800,000 in payment.
He's off to UCLA as well.
Yeah. And he's not giving the money. He's like refusing to give the money back to Arkansas or wherever he was.
Yeah. Jerk store.
So
we'll talk a lot about that. The Iamaliva, I believe. Iamaliva. I can't pronounce it unless I pronounce it phonetically. But we'll talk about that story. A lot of Husker football, spring football. There was a game. We didn't know if there would be for a while. There was a game.
Did you go?
And there was a carnival. It felt like a carnival.
Did you go?
I did not.
Okay.
My wife Heidi went, and I watched all the stuff, all the videos of everything that happened that was worth viewing. I mean, there wasn't much football.
All I'm going to say is, like, we need the head coach of the Midland women's football team
71-0 or 61-0,
to
something
coach
like that.
Nebraska's new women's football team that is going to start competing in NCAA for championships.
They beat Nebraska 61-0, something like that.
71-0. Yeah.
71-0.
Hell, they sacked Dylan Raiola once too.
But how about Dylan Raiola? 45-yard pass into a hoop.
Yeah, saw that.
That was impressive. Let's get to the first pitch.
Now the first pitch on Husker Rewind.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike three. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout. The night belongs to 33.
Kind of a coincidence. He pitched today.
Yeah. I'm going to start with baseball. Nebraska wins 21-5. They rule Maryland and improve their record to 21-23. K-State at home on Tuesday. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday next weekend against Minnesota at Haymarket Park. Following Tuesday, May 6th, Creighton at home. And then the following weekend, May 9th, 10th, and 11th, Michigan at Haymarket Park. So 8 in a row at home. Let's see if Nebraska can get things rolling. Fresh off of back-to-back wins after a 12-5 loss to Maryland on Friday. Nebraska softball team currently playing. I don't have a score update. I'll get it for you at some point in the not-too-distant future. But
won the first game, lost the second game. This is the series decider, right?
Yep. 34-12 coming into today's game.
Washington's really good.
Yeah.
So that would be a nice win today.
It would be. Let's talk about Nebraska volleyball. Because it's spring, and that's what you do in the spring is you talk about Nebraska volleyball.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, they
that
took to the court
to
under head coach Danny Busboom Kelly for the first time, and they sweep Kansas in 4 sets.
They wanted to get a look at more players.
Yeah,
so
and it was agreed upon regardless.
Yeah.
It's going to go 4. 8,592 in John Cook Arena at the Bob Devaney Sports Center on Saturday night. 25-20, 25-18, 25-21, 25-22. Andy Jackson, Rebecca Alec, 11 kills and 4 blocks each. They hit 556 and 524.
Wow.
So Andy Jackson got even better. Let's see.
Lots to talk about Ryan Hunter.
And I was going to say Ryan Hunter had 11 kills, hit 563. Harper Murray chipped in 10 kills. Taylor Landfair had 4. Tierra Sigler had 6. Bergen Riley and Campbell Flynn split time. Riley had 19 assists and 8 digs. Flynn, 23 assists and 3 digs. Campbell Flynn is one of the best setters in the country. last year in high school. And Bergen Riley is another level. But I'll tell you what, that's a 1-2 punch. You've got options just in case anything were to go sideways with Bergen. But I think she's an All-American.
Yeah, and now she's learned to jump serve, apparently. She's added that to her repertoire. 19 assists for her, but Campbell, 23 assists.
Yeah.
So that's
all our opponents need is for Bergen Riley to have a nasty jump serve. Lainey Choboy, Olivia Mock, both wore the libero jersey for a couple of sets. Choboy had 18. Diggs and Mock had 12. Nebraska at 285. KU hit 214 in that set. Let's go NFL draft. 6 Huskers signed free agent deals, but only 2 got drafted. Ty Robinson in the 4th, Thomas Fidone in the 7th. I think the fit for Ty Robinson in Philadelphia is absolutely fantastic. Thomas Fidone is a Giant, I believe. I'm not sure that that's a franchise I would want to be with, but it's better than being with the Jets. Wide receiver Isaiah Nayor went to the 49ers via a free agent deal. All of these others are all free agent deals. Center Ben Scott went to the Bucks, as did John Bullock. John Bullock can hang out with Levante David for at least a year, learning the skills.
There you go.
Wide receiver Jamal Banks signed a free agent deal with Baltimore. Nash Hutmacher also with the Ravens.
I thought he would get drafted. I really did.
I did. And
I wonder if it was his 40 time because he can't be very fast.
Possibly.
One of the things that everybody talked about with Ty is running a 4.83 40.
Yeah.
He's big and strong, as we all know. He's 6'6", 290. But I think what really impressed, I thought he'd actually go before the 4th round. I thought he might go in the 3rd.
I did too. And then DB Isaac Gifford went to the Carolina Panthers. The one player I have not mentioned, which is somebody that there was speculation up until about halfway through the season, he's going to be a 1st-round draft pick. And he still hasn't signed a free agent deal, and that's Tommy Hill. And
he hasn't worked out for anybody. I don't think he even did a pro day.
I get it, but what was his last game? It wasn't Ohio State. But
it was after Colorado.
Yeah,
something that I think you're right. Something happened with the foot. I don't know if it was plantar fasciitis, but I think he regretted a little bit playing in some of those games where maybe he hurt the team. And you want to play, you want to help your team, but sometimes when you're playing hurt, you hurt the team.
Yeah, and there was one game that it was his last game that he played in. I almost want to say it was UCLA, where there's former Huskers on the radio waves all over this town and all over Omaha, right?
Yeah.
I heard numerous former Huskers call him out by name in a very bad way, saying that he essentially quit. Something you never want to have.
I don't think he quit.
Whether it was injury related, whether it was whatever, there was some very unkind things said about Mr. Hill by
about Fidone
Huskers
at times.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, just from what I watched, if Thomas Fidone was involved in the play, he was he's an All-American tight end. If Thomas Fidone is he's part of the 11 guys on the field and the play's going the other way, I'm not sure he even realized that the snap happened. That's what I saw on too many occasions.
Rule talked a lot about him in his press conference. I think it was on April 22nd earlier last week. And that he advised Thomas Fidone to go pro. He didn't want it, but his reasoning was, hey, you've had 2 bad knee injuries. I don't want to see a 3rd. So I think he was talking to a lot of teams. That is Matt Rule on the behalf of Thomas Fidone. I thought he would go a little earlier than the 6th or 7th round. He went in the 7th round.
Yeah.
He's a really good athlete, 5-star coming out of high school. But this is what disappoints me about the draft in general and has for a number of years for Nebraska football. Ty Robinson, just the 2nd player taken in the NFL draft at defensive line since the Davis brothers, Carlos and Khalil. Yeah. That's a ways back. That's 2020. And Ndamukong Suh, 1st rounder, but that was 2009. And then you look at the tight end position where Fidone was taken. The last tight end to be taken at Nebraska was Tracy Wistrom.
Wow.
In 2002. Doesn't that stun you?
Yes, it really does.
I'm really surprised because you're talking about the Big Ten. I know Nebraska played in the Big 12 before that, and the Big 8, but that's a long time. When you think about like a school like Iowa that consistently puts tight ends in the league, like T.J. Hawkinson and Sam Laporta, Noah Fant, who Nebraska should have had. He's a Nebraska kid. George Kittle, Luke Lachey this past year was drafted. It just feels like, and now I think Nebraska is gaining some momentum with guys like Carter Nelson, that they're kids from the state that are tight ends. It feels like the Midwest should develop a lot of tight ends and linemen. And if you want to look at the draft and say, here's a reason Nebraska's not winning even, 8, 9, 10 games a year, that's a big part of it. The draft, 2 guys. I thought at one point, Matt Rule was talking about 5 or 6 getting drafted. Now you had a bunch of free agent signings, as you just pointed out, but Naor, some thought that he might get drafted. Or
Nash, Hutmaker, and
Nash, or MJ Sherman, or somebody like that. Isaac Gifford. Those guys, none of them got drafted. Ohio State had 14 guys drafted, 4 in the first round.
Well, to speak to that, some vitriol went the way of Mr. Matt Rule because he's only offered a couple of 2026 guys from Nebraska. And his point was, without the walk-on program and without the ability to carry 150 guys, I need to know they're good enough to beat Ohio State.
Yep.
Not good enough to compete against Oklahoma State and the rest of the teams in the Big 12.
Well, it's
offense.
It's just
but
win,
you
baby.
have the SEC and Big 10 up here, and you have the Big 12 down here. And to his point, Ohio State had 14 guys drafted. Nebraska had 2.
The record, by the way, is 15. Georgia had a year where they had 15 drafted.
Yeah, but the year Nebraska has 8 drafted, that's the year that Nebraska is in a college football playoff the prior year.
Yeah.
I mean it takes talent. The old school train of thought of, we just need to get Nebraska boys. They'll go out there and fight for the Big Red. And yeah, they will. But when you got a 5-star guy that from the time he was 7 years old has been in specialty camps and had trainers and nutritionists and whatever, and he's a guy that everyone knows is going to play in the NFL, and you can take, Tommy, a hay bale thrower that worked his butt off on the farm his whole life and became a Cornhusker, but that grit and determination is going to get beat out by pure raw talent and skill that somebody else has that they don't.
And quite frankly, Nebraska football just isn't what it was when you had guys, especially at the running back position. Because we talk about a lot about the running back position with, guys like Amon Green and Calvin Jones. It's just on and on and on and on. Obviously, Mike Rozier wasn't from Nebraska, but Nebraska just produced running backs at such a high level, and many of those kids were from Nebraska. Nebraska has not had a lot of guys, and maybe Carter Nelson is the big hope, the Nebraska kid that can do something. Heinrich Harburg has been a little bit of that. I mean, going into the spring, transitioning from quarterback to tight end, maybe he can be that guy that makes the NFL roster, at tight end.
Xavier Watts was a 4th round draft pick,
but he went to Notre Dame.
I get it, but it's just saying. The one thing we mentioned the draft, and I'm happy that we didn't focus on it because too many others nationally are, but I cannot tell you the glee and delight and pure pleasure I took watching Shadur Sanders not get picked until the 5th round.
Wasn't that great?
It was amazing.
I know Jack Mitchell, who's one of our guests tonight in hour number 2, was very happy about that as well.
Oh yeah. So he's got 471-year-old Joe Flacco in the quarterback room with him at Cleveland. He's got the drafted in the 3rd round Dylan Gabriel in the room with him, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson.
The only thing that would have made it better is if he was actually there live at the draft and just not getting picked.
Yeah.
Like Brady Quinn.
And his excitement over getting drafted by Cleveland in the 5th round, the video that they showed.
Maybe because the pressure's off.
I don't know. But then you also
by the way,
have the story
Cleveland's
about
got like 15 quarterbacks on their roster right now.
Well, then you got the prank phone call.
Yeah.
So
That was weird. That was certainly weird. John Bishop, we can talk about some of this stuff with John Bishop. Obviously knows the NFL inside and out and Husker football. We'll talk to him. He's the host of Unsportsmanlike Conduct at 1620 The Zone. He's also the voice of Creighton Hoops and baseball. Boy, they are hot in baseball. We'll talk to John Bishop coming up next.
Create the yard of your dreams with help from Menards. We carry a huge selection of garden supplies to bring your backyard oasis to life. Achieve a lush green lawn with Schultz grass seed mixture. It's great for seeding new lawns and covers up to 13,000 square feet. Get a 20-pound bag of Schultz Hardy or Sun and Shade Mix now on sale. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
Hi, this is Amy Graham, General Manager of Broadcast House. Whether it's filling an event, creating a line at the door, or getting a business phone to ring, we love hearing about the cool outcomes our advertisers receive from the radio campaigns. We thank our KLIN advertisers for their partnership. Please continue to support them often. In turn, you're also supporting local live personalities and content. We love bringing shoppers and local businesses together. Let us help showcase your business. Visit broadcasthouse.com.
Military veterans and active duty service members, you could become a certified cyber warrior with just 12 weeks of training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, and IT pros with these skills often enjoy abundant opportunity and a great lifestyle. Protect our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP.
Dear employer,
my name is Phil Martin.
My name is Michael Roskovich.
Ronaldo Bird.
Zach Deiser. I am writing to express my excitement at the opportunity to join your team.
As someone on the spectrum,
I possess a unique set of skills
that sets me apart from other candidates.
My detail-oriented nature allows me to communicate complex ideas,
to break down data, to have no fear in meeting new people.
I may communicate in ways that are different from what you are used to.
Structure, routine,
and clear expectation.
Help me do my best work.
My autism allows me to have a perspective that needs to be seen and heard.
It allows me to make the world safer and improve systems in ways others can't.
It allows me to bring people's inner worlds to life with my artwork.
My autism
will bring your team important insights.
Thank you for your consideration.
An autistic inclusive workplace is good for business. It's time to make a change. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/win.
Husker Rewind with Tom Stevens and Mike Melby. Two guys old enough to actually remember Nebraska's 5 national titles.
Man, woman, and child did that. Put them in the aisle.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Hour number 1, Husker Rewind. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, as we welcome in the voice of Creighton baseball and basketball. Creighton baseball has now won 8 in a row since their loss to the Huskers. Ed Service retires, and they just go on a streak. But she should have retired years ago, really.
Or maybe they should have lost to the Huskers earlier, because they had the winning streak against Nebraska, and we saw what good that did them. They didn't make their conference tournament the last 2 years, so maybe Nebraska losing to Nebraska was the thing.
Hey, Mike brought this up that, you've seen a lot of coaches in college basketball and maybe a few in college football that have retired because they're frustrated with NIL. Did that have anything to do with Ed's decision to say, this is getting old? Or what happened there?
No. With the thing with baseball is, unless you're in the SEC, the NIL stuff's not going to really factor in that much.
Yeah.
Because the lion's share of the money, at least, and then at a school like Creighton is going to go to basketball, and then volleyball would be next in the pecking order. So No, I think it was a combination of factors. Obviously, he's been there a while, but I also think that they were kind of hoping that Marcus Blossom was kind of hoping that they could work on some kind of a retirement plan. I mean, I think and when they were able to do it, and then they were able to get Mark Kingston after he got fired from South Carolina, it ended up being a really good timing, of everything that came together. So no, I don't think NIL really had anything much to do with it. Ed kind of operates in his own universe anyway, and sometimes I think some of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Bish, I have to ask, did you get a little bit of joy, a lot of joy, or was it exhilaration watching Shedeur Sanders fall to the 5th round and go to one of the worst run franchises in the NFL?
Are you asking if I have a case of Shedeur in Florida? Because yes, I do. Listen, I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he in the right situation can be a winning quarterback in the NFL. A franchise quarterback, it have to be the right situation. I mean, I don't want to give up on anyone. I mean, after all, Tom Brady wasn't, coveted that high, and we saw what happened. The thing though about this case was when you go out and you basically craft yourself as the heel, and you actively work to market yourself and be a little cocky and arrogant and flashing the watch and flashing the bling and all of that stuff, you have to expect there's going to be people that are going to love you, and there's going to be people that are going to hate you. And listen, that's what this whole motivation has always been about. With Deion 30 years ago, it's about gaining attention. And it's like the old adage in PR. There's no such thing as bad PR. You could, as long as you're getting talked about, as long as you're getting mentioned, your name is out there. And that's what the Sanderses have done for years. And this is what happens. And I think a lot of what happened, with this was that, and I talked about this a couple of years ago when the Colorado Shedeur stuff just went out of control on big noon kickoff and college game day. Is you have so many friends of Shedeur or friends of Deion out there that are in the media, who worked with him, who worship him, who love him, and they're gonna gloss over a lot of the faults that they might see. And I think that's what happened here. The Mel Kipers of the world, they glossed over the fact that, they may see something there, but there's 32 people in those offices in NFL teams that didn't see the same thing that you did. And it doesn't mean they're bad at analyzing quarterbacks. If they were bad at analyzing quarterbacks, we wouldn't have many quarterbacks that are good in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
if these franchises really thought that he could win at a high level, they would take him no matter what his personality. It does feel like this is a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. Like we're going to see that in a few years. But I wonder,
who the happiest people would be, Tom?
Yeah.
The Sanderses, because it keeps their name out in the press.
That's probably true. Good or bad, negative or positive. It really doesn't matter.
And you know who's going to co-star on the Sanderses? Johnny what's his Texas A&M?
Manziel.
Johnny Manziel.
Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like that could be the case. Because I think he's a really talented guy, and maybe will have success. But it's one of those things, and I heard a lot of people say this, and I kind of agree. You could be a wide receiver, you could be a running back, you could probably play anywhere on defense and have a personality like that. You can't play quarterback and allow that in your locker room.
No, you're exactly right. And the other part of it too is not that other positions aren't, scrutinized very carefully, in the draft process, but the quarterback position is scrutinized that much more because of how important that position is and all the leadership traits that go into playing that position. And so if there are certain personality traits in a player that might be seen as a negative, you can get away with that if you're a defensive back. You can get away with it maybe if you're a linebacker. You can get away with it if you're running back. can't get away with some of these things when you're a quarterback, because you are supposed to be not only the leader on the field, but the leader in the locker room. And so I think that interview process just went really, really bad for him.
John Bishop joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Is one of those traits that is good from a quarterback as a leader being willing to jump into a women's flag football game and take over as quarterback when your school's team is down by 50 points? Because I think it is.
I mean, you jest and we laugh, but there's something about what Dylan is willing to do. Now, there's a bad side to it too, but let's talk about the good side. The good side is, here's a kid who just really enjoys where he's at and the school that he's at, and he enjoys the spotlight. You know, Shedeur enjoys the spotlight. I don't mean to turn this into a Dylan versus a Shedeur thing, but there's a healthy involvement, and then there's sometimes unhealthy involvement. What you see Dylan doing is healthy involvement. You know, he's getting himself mixed up in things. You know, he's going to all these high school sporting events. He's being seen in public. He enjoys that spotlight, but it's from a positive angle. It's not necessarily, hey, look at me, you know, flashing my bling or anything like that. I mean, certainly there's a level of attention, you know, to it, but it's healthy and it's fun, and in a world where everything is about the NIL and about the business of football, at least, and I'm not saying that Dylan isn't getting paid and isn't enjoying that part of it, because he certainly is. But this kind of stuff reminds you of why you wanted to be in college in the first place, because you're doing the fun things, you're getting involved in, you know, other people's activities and stuff like that. You're going out, you're being around town. So I think it's very healthy. Now, it's also, right now, it's kind of easy to do because, you know, it's still it's early in his career. What I'll be curious to see, and maybe it won't even happen, but what happens if, you know, next year doesn't go well, and then the pressure starts coming back on Dylan, and suddenly, you know, he's not meeting the expectation. Is he still showing that side of himself? Who knows? Maybe we don't even have to answer that question, because next year will go well and his career will go well. But I think what he's doing is very healthy, and it's healthy attention. It's not negative. Oh, it's not negative look at me attention.
Hey, John, real quick, I also want to interject here. He doesn't just do this for the publicity. I was at Muchachos having dinner with my girlfriend, Tracy. The Nebraska women's volleyball or basketball team is there celebrating Callan Hake's birthday. Yeah. And Dylan showed up. He didn't show up because there's TV cameras there. He showed up supporting a fellow student athlete at Nebraska. And to me, that's different. I mean, that's a difference that a leader has to have in them. And it seems as though he simply does.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess when I say, you know, there's publicity involved, of course there is. He knows, you know, high school events, he'll be seen and things like that. But you're right. It's not just to go out and hunt for cameras. He just enjoys the spotlight. He just enjoys being out there. And, you know, it's those types of things as he continues to do them. You know, there were all the rumors in the off season. Oh, he could be headed to Miami. Well, obviously those things, that wasn't going to happen, because I truly think he loves it here. You know, that was the thing that brought him here in the first place, was because of how much he loved this place. It also shows you how badly Scott Frost botched that whole situation, because it's clear that this was the place he wanted to be, but the matchup was so bad that he had to consider something else. Yeah. And so then when you bring in, you know, a competent coach and you know, competent staff and a healthy environment, you know, then the pieces all fit together.
Yeah, and unlike Shedeur, I don't think he necessarily wants to be the face of the franchise. He realizes he has to be. He has to carry that load for Nebraska. He has to try to get them, you know, wide receivers and running backs and offensive linemen to come here. So you have to be out front a little bit more. Nebraska had a spring game this weekend. There was a little tackling. There was a little football. There was a lot of a carnival competition stuff. I mean, it felt like where's the stuff on the stick for me? But they had the fastest man, the strongest man. They had the tractor pull. Is this going to be a regular thing? Do you want it to be a regular thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I honestly think, and here's where I will pat Coach Prime on the back. The idea of scrimmaging other schools, I think, is going to happen. If it doesn't happen next year, it'll happen the year after that. And I think that's where the future of spring games is going to go. This deal, on Saturday was, just it I don't want to say it was thrown together, because obviously you don't do all of these things and throw something together. But this was done more as a stopgap to, we're not doing the regular spring game. Can we make something happen that gets people involved and will get them excited to come and watch or come and participate? So I don't think, we're going to see, offensive and defensive linemen pulling tractors in the future. But I do think we're going to start to see teams, scrimmage each other. One idea I had, and I don't know if this is really valid, I haven't thought it totally through, but there might be an opportunity to do some co-practices, kind of like what they do in the NFL.
Training camp, yeah.
Game, but like in training camp, when like the Panthers and the Cowboys would have a couple of joint practices and then a scrimmage, where maybe you could bring in, maybe this is an opportunity where you could bring a junior college like an Iowa Western in to work out. And it's an opportunity for Nebraska to maybe look at some of those guys, because that's what the junior colleges literally are or were the AAA level of college football for many, many, many years. So it wouldn't be like you're poaching someone's roster. That's what these kids are going to JUCO for, because they couldn't make the grade, but then they're hoping they play well enough that they'll get attention and go to a bigger level. So maybe there's some kind of a future in that. But I definitely think there will be scrimmages against other teams, and that'll be kind of the future of where all of this goes.
Bitch, real quick, I want to ask you about Husker hoops, Creighton hoops as well, a little bit, with your thoughts on Greg McDermott and Fred Hoiberg's haul in the portal here in the offseason so far.
I like what Fred has done. I really do. And it goes to show you that you can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Not that Fred couldn't do that. But, he was prepping the team for basketball games, and yet he was working the phones and, obviously setting things up to bring in a lot of shooters. And that's kind of what we've always talked about with Fred is, hey, you got to have a team with shooters, and it looks like they've done that. So I think that's I think Nebraska's put themselves in a pretty good spot for next season. I was looking at Mark Torvik, and all this stuff is way too early, but his early numbers on this, and Nebraska was in the top 40, which is arguably where they were for most of last season too. But it's definitely not a step back. And just like with everything else, you got to see how these guys mesh. You got to see how these guys gel. But certainly it's a good baseline from which to start. And then Creighton, they just picked up another big transfer today, Blake Harper, who was the MEAC Player of the Year at Howard, and has 3 years left. He was also the Freshman of the Year in that conference, just committed. They've done an excellent job. I mean, man.
That class is crazy.
It is. It's really good.
What about Josh Dix getting 2.5? I mean, Josh Dix is a good player, but if the figures are right, $2.5 million for a guy that averages 14 points a game, the numbers are getting crazy.
Yes, they are. They're getting insane. And the crazy part is Creighton is supposedly not one of the crazier ones. There was a list 2 weeks ago on CBS Sports where it was the $10 million club. You had the Dukes and the Kentuckys, and Texas Tech was in there, and teams that are spending that much. The rumor, I'm using air quotes, is that Creighton was in the $5 or $6 million club, and so you're right. The money is insane. I mean, you've got guys who are third or fourth best scorer on their team, getting 7 figures to transfer to another school. It's at least that's the report. I mean, a lot of this stuff you always got to take with a grain of salt because you never
we don't know.
Really know what the numbers are, but they're close. The bottom line is this: there's a lot of money out there right now, and players are cashing in big time, and the transfer portal's only getting more and more lucrative, not less.
But Creighton's money could not buy themselves a Yarushevicius. So,
I can't even pronounce it, so that's a good thing.
Ugi Yarushevicius. Bish, you're going to have to say it next year.
But only once.
Yeah.
But only for one game.
Yep.
That's right.
I'm not going to have to do it for 31. We got one too. We got one too from Eastern Europe, but his is easier to say. So
Creighton's going to be really, really good in basketball next year. Surprise.
Yeah.
The voice of Creighton hoops, and of course, one of the voices on Unsportsmanlike Conduct on 1620 The Zone, John Bishop. We appreciate the time. It's always great stuff.
hey, thanks guys.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bish.
Appreciate it, John Bishop. Another John Baylor is going to join us, I think, next. Talk a little Husker volleyball. We'll do that coming up.
In work, life, or love, success often comes down to being in the right place at the right time. And that's why people wear watches. To the fisherman and to the fish, what really matters is being in the right place at the right temperature. It's especially true in springtime. As the spring sun warms up the lakes and rivers, fish begin to do what fish do at this time of year: spawn. And that brings them into shallow waters, but only when the temperature is just right. The fisherman knows which fish spawn at which temperatures. So in the spring, you'll see him near the shore, occasionally checking the water temperature, but never checking his watch. Like the fish he's trying to catch, the fisherman doesn't wear one.
Any big box store can sell you the gear, but the gear doesn't catch the fish. You do. When you're talking fishing, talk to an expert. Buy the gear. The advice is on the house at Wolf Tackle, just south of Highway 2 on 48th Street.
I'm Peter Roman at Wolf Tackle, and like you know, if you're too busy to fish, you're too busy. We know fishing.
Focus. Without the right focus, you don't know what you could be missing. And when you're driving, keeping things in focus could be the difference in preventing a tragedy. I'm Trooper Fitzgerald with the Nebraska State Patrol. When behind the wheel, driving deserves your full attention. Help keep Nebraska roads safe. Avoid distractions and keep your focus on driving.
This message is presented in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association, the NDOT Highway Safety Office, and the Nebraska State Patrol.
If you're over age 60 or disabled, Aging Partners Aging and Disability Resource Center is your free one-stop shop for resource information and assistance. The ADRC also serves caregivers and community service providers with information about publicly funded programs, in-home care options, assisted living, nursing home, and housing options. Call 441-7070. Aging Partners in the ADRC. 441-7070.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-822-1598. 800-822-1598. 800-822-1598.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Around the world, Children International and friends like you are giving children in poverty a chance to thrive by helping ensure access to healthcare, nutrition, and educational opportunities and support on their path to employment. Because every child deserves a chance to realize their full potential. Learn more about Children International by going to children.org today.
Husker Rewind with Tom Stevens and Mike Melby with a combined 60-plus years of broadcasting experience. I guess that means they're really old.
They're going to make him do this till he's 90.
Here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Late afternoon, early evening. I'm Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens across the way. And on the Summit Lawns talk and text line, one of the OGs, one of the founders of Sports Day Mid-America, that ultimately became Sports Nightly, Mr. John Baylor.
In this very studio.
Yes.
They broadcast. Remember that?
JB.
That was a good stuff.
Mike and Tom, happy Sunday afternoon. Destination Radio, Husker Rewind. Kids, everybody quiet. Mike and Tom are on the radio. I'm trying to focus. We got
There
the
you go.
rewind. I love it.
You're coming back from Omaha Supernovas game. What happened?
Oh, yeah. Love Supernovas. Look like they got the inside track to win the regular season after taking down the Vegas Thrill today. Third set was very close. Omaha's got Grand Rapids on Friday. They win that in 3, 4, or 5 sets. Doesn't matter. They are the league champs. Get the number 1 seed 2 weeks from now in Vegas for the semifinals. The winner goes to the match for $1 million to be distributed among the roster of the winning team.
Wow.
So the PBF is in the home stretch.
How much of that do you get of the $1 million?
$0. In fact, I might owe them money.
No.
But do they get a crown?
That's right. No crown.
Yeah, you're right. Vegas is about the crown.
I was curious. I'm
sure they get a nice trophy, probably made of lucite, and throw it on the shelf, and you get $1 million. I mean, it's just an example of the money going into professional sports. I mean, the Celtics sold for $6.1 billion, and now I'm hearing that actually it's going to be closer when it's done, and for tax reasons, closer to $7.2 billion. I mean, for an NBA team. I remember when the Baltimore Orioles were sold 20 years ago. This is when I was doing Sports Day Mid-America. It was $184 million, and I was chuckling at how much they paid and how it's absurd, and you have to pay all these players all this money on top of the huge sum they paid for the team, and now Baltimore Orioles are worth about $6 billion. This is one reason I'm not a financial advisor.
But you are a volleyball announcer, and a pretty darn good one. Nebraska sold out crowd last night. They get the sweep over Kansas, 4 sets over Kansas, and they played everyone. Did Kansas do that same thing? Because how good did they look? Because it looked good on TV to me.
Well, if I were you, I'd stay focused on radio. But the answer to your question is very, because all these freshmen, T. Sigler, she is the future. I think she just made a huge argument in her audition for a full-time 6 rotation opportunity at the second outside position. So I think it's going to be Harper and T. Sigler on the outside, this great freshman, number 1 recruit in the country on the outside. But then Ryan Hunter, Ryan Hunter had an even bigger day statistically on the right side coming off her ACL. She had 10 kills before she had her first attack error. I think she finished with 11 kills and 1 error. So any thoughts of Ryan Hunter redshirting, I think, are now over. But the setter, Campbell Flynn, wow, she's ready for prime time right now.
Well, she's got a redshirt, right? Last time I checked, Bergen Riley is the setter.
Yeah, but I think she's not redshirting, I don't think, because at times you need a second setter, maybe a double shift. I mean, rarely does one player play every rally at any position, but including setter. But it'd be great if we could save a year of her eligibility. But redshirting is kind of a charming notion from a prior long gone era. I mean, these players, especially the elite ones, they don't want to wait a year. They're in a rush.
Why don't we just go to 5 years and get it done with? Just go 5 years. Everybody gets 5 years. Get it done with.
If I could still be in college, I would. Let me tell you, the cubicle world is overrated.
That it very much so is. John, walk me through what minute, small or gigantic differences it was yesterday with Danny Busboom Kelly being the head coach instead of John Cook.
Good question.
The offense was noticeably faster. Now, one slight issue that others have brought up, and many have brought up with regards to Nebraska's offense the last couple of years, it's pretty conventional and predictable, but they can do that because they have such firepower. So they basically would say, hey, we're going to do this, run a pretty predictable offense, and you just try to stop us. But this is a little, it requires, shorter, faster sets. It can really take the defense time to adjust. And if it's done well, it's going to make Nebraska's offense even tougher to stop. But the tricky part is you got to pass well to make it work. But if you don't pass well, then you're just doing that conventional slower offense anyway, albeit, out of system. But I think it's a great risk to try, especially since we got 2 great setters.
But is there a risk though of playing that way? Maybe more attack errors when you play a little faster. I know they're trying to bring back the jump serve to more in the. I mean, I think it was Harper or Bergen Riley that mentioned yesterday that they're trying to teach her the jump serve.
Wow, that's a little separate. The jump serve is also a relic from a bygone era that you just don't see anymore. I mean, Jordan Larson, who would never jump serve today, and Kelly Aspergren, she was a great jump server, and they asked her to put her feet on the floor just because it's a lot of wear and tear on your shoulder, and it's also feast or famine. You get a lot of out of bounds error serving errors from it. But finally, it's easier to pass apparently than this jump float. But back to the offensive scheme, running fast offenses typically means you're going to use your middles more and use your right sides more. And we used to say set the middle, STM. But Danny Busby Kelly basically says force the middle. And boy, did they last night. I mean, there was at one point Rebecca and Andy Jackson had like 13 kills and 1 error between them, and they were getting a ton of swings. It's just beautiful to see because middle attacks and right side attacks, shorter sets, happen faster, have much higher success percentages. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, that it is. And those two combined, Rebecca and Andy Jackson for 22 kills, both hit well over 500. Insane. Lexi's gone. I didn't think it would ever actually happen, but Lexi Rodriguez is no longer on the roster. You have got two stellar defensive specialists in Lainey Choboy and Olivia Mock. What are your thoughts after yesterday's match and heading into next fall?
They're so different. I think Lainey is a better digger, and she chases things down acrobatically, extends plays you thought were over. And Olivia's a better passer because she's a little calmer. When you pass volleyballs, you kind of want to be calm. You don't want to be moving around. And Lainey, is very athletic, right? And she moves. Anyway, you wish you could have a combo of the two. It's a really close call. Now you're thinking, well, hey, now with modern rules, you can use 2 liberos. You probably don't want to do that, like bringing in Lainey when you're serving and bringing in Olivia when you're receiving serve, because then you can't use the second as your DS in the back row. And you're going to probably want a defensive specialist to come in for one of the middles, or for your right side, Ryan Hunter, or maybe one of your second outsides. But if T. Sigler is playing this well as your second outside, and she can play all 6 rotations along with Harper, you may not need as many defensive specialists. But I think they're going to go with 1 libero. My guess is it'll be Lainey to start the season. And if she can really up her passing game, which at times she's been stellar, but she's been a little streaky when it comes to passing in her 2 years as a Husker, I think she can hold on to the job. And Olivia, she's fabulous back there as well. And we'll see her at least 3 rotations in the back row.
Talking to the voice of Nebraska volleyball, John Baylor. We talked about this. It feels like for forever about, replacing a Hall of Famer, and whoever has to replace John has to replace a Hall of Famer, and how uncomfortable that might be for whoever it is. How's it feel for Busboom? How's she taking it with your read?
Fabulously. Remember Gene Bartow? He replaced John Wooden.
Yeah.
He was a disaster. He lasted 1 year at UCLA, and he took off for Alabama Birmingham. They didn't even have a program at Alabama Birmingham. He's like, I am so uncomfortable here. I'll go to Birmingham and start a program. And he had a nice career there. It's tough to follow a legend. Who followed Bear Bryant? It was Gene Stallings.
Yeah.
And then they had Mike Shula. It was a disaster. Anyway.
Is he there? Did we lose him? We lost him. We might have lost him.
JB, you cut out. He's back.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
When she was at Louisville, she got there, and they occasionally would flirt with the top 25 and maybe make the tournament once every 3 years. She leaves there after 4 conference championships, 5 regional finals, 3 Final Fours, 2 championship matches, and a perennial top 5 program. Just stunning. And she did that with a lot of 2nd tier and 3rd tier recruits who other teams, big programs passed on. So she seems really comfortable. She's a native daughter. If this thing doesn't work out well, I'll be stunned.
Yeah, me too. Everything in your life has worked out perfectly. You're flawless.
Exactly. Unbelievable. Yeah. Like I'm 6'4", blonde hair.
Yep.
Got a 6-pack.
Yep.
And I'm just, fighting off all sorts of social opportunities.
All that matters is what you think about yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I think you're fantastic.
While I'm alone and no one's hanging out with me, I just stare in the mirror and go, you are awesome. Everyone else is a knucklehead.
JB, love having you on. Thanks for the time.
That was it? All right.
That was
All right, kids, you can talk again, but I'm going to stay focused on this show. It's a good one.
He always wants more time. And I love
Thanks,
that
JB.
about him. And if anybody deserves more time, it is John Baylor. but we got to go eventually. In a couple of minutes, we have another legend, Nate Rohr, a voice of Nebraska softball. Have you seen a score on today?
Let me get the latest update.
They won the first game. They lost the second game, 10-2.
Top of the sixth, 6-0. But I think I have an update other than that. Let's see if it's over. Yep. They do get the win.
All right.
And the final was 6-0.
There you go.
Jordy Ball allowed 1 hit, struck out 11, did walk a couple, and she hit 2 home runs and had 4 RBIs.
Well, they're 18th ranked in the country, and they've got a really good team. And it makes sense. They've got Jordy Ball, but, obviously it didn't go well last year. She gets injured. I think it was the very first game of the season last year.
Yep.
This season going much better for Nebraska. They're hitting a ton of home runs. They're scoring a lot of runs. They've had, I don't know, it feels like 10, 12 games decided by a run rule. This is a powerful team. The one thing I worry about is pitching depth, and we'll talk a little bit about that with Nate Rohr. I'd also like to get in with Nate. He is the PA voice for Nebraska football. His thoughts on what happened. You heard in hour number 1, John Bishop mention scrimmaging, like an Iowa State, a Kansas State, or bringing in maybe a junior college and practicing with them. Which of those options you think is more likely to happen in college football?
I could see 2 teams doing like a all borderline scrimmage type practice,
Yeah.
but I would be more interested, and I think it's more beneficial for all of the Division I Power 4 conference schools if they bring in a JUCO, if they bring in a team that could feed them some players, and maybe it's an agreement that you have where you know what, your team is going to come here. We're going to have a quick little scrimmage. We're going to run some drills, not a full blown 60-minute game. But we also have 7 of your guys we'd really love to have come take a tour.
Troy Dannon mentioned that possibility of maybe even a game because everybody's looking for extra revenue in college football, kind of like maybe what the NFL does with preseason games. I don't know. I don't think they could continue to do what they did on Saturday. It was good for one time, but I don't really want to see that ever again.
No.
I do want to talk a little Husker volleyball, or we did talk volleyball. Let's talk softball. We'll do it with Nate Rohr coming up in hour number 2.
Todd, what do you know about EV?
Ryan, is that really something you want to talk about in public?
I said EV, as in electric vehicles, not what you're thinking about.
Well, that's a relief. Why do you ask?
Because there's a lot of buzz about EVs as of late and whether they're better, safer, and cleaner for the environment than gas-powered cars. No matter who's in charge in Washington, I think EVs are here to stay. So Eustis Body Shop has gotten ahead of the game with certifications for working on EVs and other brand-specific certifications for many of the popular electric and hybrid vehicles.
I know there's some special precautions and procedures for working on electric vehicles.
That's right, Todd. We have put a lot of energy into making sure our technicians are up to speed, trained, and certified to stay safe while working on and making safe repairs to electric vehicles of all makes.
That's a relief. At first, I thought you were going to ask me if I had
Accidents happen, even to good drivers. If it happens to you, call Eustis Body Shop. Your best decision after a collision.
The most recommended Eustis Body Shop. That's who we are.
Music that makes you want to get down and move. KC and the Sunshine Band. Live. Friday, August 8th, Pinewood Bowl Theater in Lincoln's Pioneers Park. With special guest, Village People. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss KC and the Sunshine Band.
Johns Hopkins University has found that just mild hearing loss doubles your risk of dementia, so hearing loss isn't something to ignore.
But hearing aids are so expensive and ugly.
Not anymore. Meet Audien Hearing. You can get nearly invisible hearing aids without a prescription starting at $98 a pair, and they're ready to use right out of the box. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, and with over 1 million customers, Audien is easy to trust. Visit audienhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
From the Momo Pizzeria and Ristorante Studios, we are the voice of Lincoln. KLIN Lincoln. KDDK HD3 Lincoln. K257TN Lincoln is 1499.3 KLIN. Welcome to the best recap of Husker sports, Husker Rewind, with your hosts Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome to the circus.
They'll hand it to him off the left side, looking, and pay dirt. Ramir Johnson, the local boy, the Harlem native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Brownbaw's there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Good weekend for Nebraska softball and baseball. Baseball wins 21-5 to take the series over Maryland today. And Nebraska softball takes the series over Washington after winning on Friday night. They lose 10-2 last night, then come back 6-0 over Washington today to take the series as we bring in the voice of Nebraska softball and the sports director right here at 1400 KLIN, Nate Rohr. Hey, Nate, how you doing?
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. I'm
Good.
good, even better after the softball results, and but doing well. How are you guys?
When'd your flight come back? Is it tonight or right now, or are you in the air?
No, actually, I stayed back.
Okay, you did it via the screen, as we sometimes.
So I did not do the play-by-play this weekend.
Okay.
Camden Cohn, who, of course, works for the network, has filled in. He filled in for me last year. So he filled in for me this weekend, did a fine job, and coming back with 2 wins. He has me feeling like Wally Pipp. I don't think I've ever gotten 2 wins over Washington, and they broke my heart a few times. You know, you remember the 2013 Women's College World Series. They beat the Huskers in extras, walked us off. We beat them in 14, and maybe still my favorite regular season game calling Husker softball. But for the most part, Washington's had the upper hand on us. So to go out there and get 2 out of 3 is pretty impressive and a nice big step for this team. You know, it wasn't like they needed to go out there and win 2 of 3. You know, they're solidly in regionals. They kind of are where they are in terms of seeding, but it solidifies it and strengthens it a little bit, and it gives them a little momentum heading into the last week of the regular season. And, you know, anytime you trot out there, you want to win, and they got the job done in 2 out of 3 games. Pretty impressive.
Tied for 3rd in the Big Ten with Northwestern, I think Ohio State at now 14-5. But you've got some really, really good softball teams in the Big Ten. Oregon is ranked 5th. You got UCLA ranked at 8th, Nebraska 18th. How does the Big Ten compare softball-wise to the rest of the country?
Well, I would say that it's maybe a step down from even what you were projecting after adding Oregon, UCLA, and Washington, because first off, Washington, even though it was a hard-fought and important series win for Nebraska, Washington has taken a step back. They're usually a team that talks about Oklahoma City and has reasonable expectations of getting there. But they had a mass exodus through the transfer portal. Ruby Malin, their ace pitcher out of Omaha, transferred to Oklahoma State. They lost their shortstop. So they were really bitten by the portal. So Washington has taken a step back. Then you look at some of the better programs in the Big Ten. You think of Michigan, Northwestern. Those sorts of teams have taken a step back this year. Now, there are a couple of risers. Oregon usually is not a top 5 team they're doing it this year. Some things have come together for them. And then Ohio State, under a first-year coach, has taken a step forward. Kieran Kumar has them hitting like crazy. They have over 100 home runs for the year. So, yeah, a couple of programs that have improved, but for the most part, the conference has taken a step back. So it's going to be a little tougher in terms of seeding for the Big Ten, because I just don't think that the Big Ten will get the respect that you were hoping they would get once it added UCLA, Oregon, and Washington.
Voice of Nebraska softball, voice of Memorial Stadium, Nate Rohr, joining us here on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Nate, it's always good to have somebody that you can count on to fill in case something does come up. I know you filled in for me for a game or two back when I was calling Stars hockey. And then the weird thing this past weekend, not yesterday and Friday before, but the weekend before, I actually was back on the headset calling games for the Lincoln Stars as their play-by-play guy was out. How fun and difficult is it to juggle all the things that you do? Being a PA guy is so different from doing play-by-play, and play-by-play for softball, I did it. It's not the easiest thing because it's not a fast game. You've got to fill in for, a long stretch at times so you can tell stories. But you also kind of want to do a little play-by-play at times when you're doing PA. Talk about how you juggle all of that.
Well, I think part of it is, especially this year, it was made easier by the fact that I did not do high school football play-by-play. Very often, basically since I graduated college, I would do high school play-by-play. So I'd do a high school game on Friday night, and then on Saturday, I would turn around and do PA on Nebraska football. But, it's just keeping everything straight, making sure you make time to prepare for everything as best you can. I've never really had too much of a problem going into public address mode when I'm doing play-by-play or vice versa. But you did mention I filled in for you one time on a Stars playoff game. They were up in Sioux Falls. And that was part of a great week for me. Not to brag, but I'm gonna.
It's all good.
So,
Absolutely.
So that week, and I was in college, and I may have taken some unscheduled off days from my studies. But I go up to Sioux Falls. I call the hockey game. Then Nebraska was at Iowa State for softball, and so I just drove halfway, and then went down to Ames and called the game. So the hockey game, I think, was Monday. The softball game's Tuesday afternoon. While getting ready for the softball game Tuesday afternoon, I see that Bob Costas is speaking at Drake University in Des Moines. And so Tuesday night on my way home, I saw Bob Costas speak, got his autograph. It was really cool. So thank you for that, Mike.
Wow.
There you go.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
What a week.
Yeah, that is a really good
week.
Nate Rohr, of course, KLIN Sports Director, voice of Nebraska softball, PA voice of Nebraska football. And I should have guessed that you were probably back here calling the spring game. It was kind of part carnival, part scrimmage, part garage sale. What'd you make of what you saw on Saturday?
Well, it was the first time. I think a lot of people didn't know what to expect, me included, and maybe first and foremost. And so I think we were all just trying to settle into the concept and settle into what we were going to see football-wise and the competitions. And, I would be interested to see what this looks like next year if they do an event like this again, because it felt like they were trying to fit in a ton of competitions and a ton of the fun stuff. And then late in the game, the decision was made to bring back football. And even though it was bottom of the depth chart guys and, for the most part, guys that you're not going to expect to see a whole lot from this fall, I think it was still the stuff that I gravitated toward the most. Seeing TJ Lateef out there for the first time. Jaden Doss was very active. So that was the most useful stuff for me. I think we've all operated with the understanding that the spring game is much as anything for entertainment purposes only, that you can't get a great sense of where the football team is going based on practice 15 of 15 and the little that they let out there. But the carnival part of it, I think, was okay. Maybe in retrospect, they might have cut back a competition here or there. It just felt like, if anything, we were maybe trying to do a little too much. I love the garage sale part of it.
Yeah.
And I think the fans did too. I went through the line like everybody else. I walked out of there putting down $40, and I got a pair of basketball shorts and a nice pair of wind pants and a coffee mug and a Memorial Stadium book and a T-shirt for my son. So I felt like that was worthwhile. So I think if they were to streamline the football event part of it, I think that would be a good move moving forward.
Nate, the one thing that I think was more important than anything this weekend, aside from the garage sale, was the recruiting weekend that it turned out to be. There were some highly touted prospects that were on hand. I know one of them, Jordan Campbell, a 4-star linebacker out of Miami that I believe is committed to Miami. They're trying to flip him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard that he was blown away and that it's now kind of game on for his recruitment. Sure. What have you heard about the recruits that were in town this weekend and the way they felt their visits went?
I haven't heard a lot from the recruiting front, but I can imagine they were shown a first-class time. I think they saw the team having fun, and the ability to have fun while still working hard, I think, is very attractive to somebody sizing up a new school and a new place to go. So, and they were able to see some of the passion. I mean, even though this crowd was down from what we have seen for spring games, it's still, a lot of people, relatively speaking, piling into a stadium to see something that doesn't count in the standings. And I think, whether it was the 50,000, it obviously was not 50,000 that we've seen for the spring game. They were still able to get a taste of the passion that people have for Nebraska football. So I'm sure they had a good experience. Like I said, I haven't heard a whole lot on the recruiting front, but I imagine they were shown a first-class time by the staff.
Yeah.
And I think the whole event reinforced, hey, you can come here. You're going to work hard. They're going to demand you work hard, but they're also going to look for opportunities to have fun, too.
Yeah, it drew 9,000. It felt like maybe a one and done. And from here on out, you do something a little bit different. John Bishop in hour number 1 mentioned that he's heard that they could possibly scrimmage a community college, or maybe you'd have something with Iowa State or Kansas State, like an NFL training camp. And Troy Dannon, I think, told Steve Sipple of Husker Online that that's a possibility because everybody's looking for new revenue sources. Do you think that would go over with the fans?
Oh, I think that would be really attractive. Even if it's a controlled scrimmage or practice situation, I think seeing Nebraska against somebody else, especially somebody close by where, Nebraska hasn't, Iowa State's not on the schedule, Kansas is not on the schedule. K-State's not on the schedule. So you have some possibilities there of, a controlled scrimmage. I'm sure it would be a situation where it wouldn't be just a full-fledged 60 minutes, kickoff to final gun, and the timing's the same as always. But I do think that a scrimmage situation would be more attractive to fans. I would be curious to hear how the coaches react to that. I know, obviously, Deion Sanders was kind of advocating for that. But, and the coaches, in their heart of hearts, do they want to trot out their team against another opponent?
Nate, I want to ask you, before we let you go, I want to jump back to softball really quick. Nebraska hits 8 homers on the weekend. They're up to 93 for the season. They're gonna clip 100. Why the long ball so much more this year than in years prior?
Well, they've had some hitters infused into this lineup that have hit for quite a bit of power. I don't know that they, really pushed it per se, but you have veteran hitters, smart hitters. You look at the people that they have added to this lineup. Ava Cusack, I think, has really taken to what Diane Miller has been teaching as the hitting coach. Casey Hoffman, I think, was just a good hitter. And that's been accentuated since coming to Nebraska. And, oh, by the way, she's healthy. Jordy Ball's just an otherworldly talent. And I mean, there you're talking about 17 home runs with Ball. You're talking about 18 with Cusack. That's 35 home runs right there. I think Samantha Bland's coming into her power. So it's a confluence of factors. And it does go back to the idea that Diane Miller is a really good hitting coach. And that's what we've seen in this program the last 10 years or so, is that they have really been able to do a lot of good offensively. I think she understands how to let hitters build their own approach. I think she understands sort of the delicate balance of letting you have your own swing, your own mechanics, but also having some absolutes and having tweaks that will help you out. And I think that it's a fairly veteran roster when you look at it, to where, there isn't a true freshman starting right now. And so you've got a lot of older players who are smarter about the pitching that they're facing and, coming into their physical strength to where they can hit for some power.
Nate Rohr, the voice of Nebraska softball, of course, PA voice of Nebraska football. They're 18th in the country. It feels like maybe pitching depth, but what would it take for Nebraska to make a run in the NCAA tournament, you think?
Well, I think if they were able to get great secondary pitching, I think we all assume, and rightly so, that Jordy Ball is going to be able to do the job. And with Jordy, you can talk about her starting at least 2 games in a weekend and then maybe relieving on a third. Kylie McGee had really been steadily improving, and so that's what made her outing Saturday somewhat disappointing for me, because she struggled. It felt like a tight strike zone from what I could gather, but she had been steadily improving, and if she and or Hannah Kamenzend can win you a game in a regional against a good opponent, maybe you throw them game 1 against presumably a number 3 seed. But if you can get a win out of Hannah Kamenzend and Kylie McGee, I think you're in good shape to win a regional, because I think there's a lot of trust that Jordy Ball can pitch well enough to win you 2 games.
Yeah, that's a fun event, the College World Series. But I think softball in general is just fun to watch. I think it comes off well on TV and on the radio. It's always been a radio sport, baseball, softball. But it really, I think they do a good job with the Women's College World Series as well.
Yeah, it works. You get to action quickly and has everything you like about baseball and less of what you don't like.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, we like you, and we'd love to have you back, especially if the Huskers make a run here. But we'll definitely have you back soon. Thanks, Nate.
Hey, sounds good, gentlemen. We'll see you.
Thanks,
Appreciate Nate. Part of Jack and Friends in the Morning, voice of Husker softball, PA voice of Husker football, and just all around good guy, Nate Rohr. Jack Mitchell coming up next. We'll talk a little Husker football. He was one of those guys that was happy to see, I think, a little bit the failure of Shedeur Sanders over the weekend, taken to the 5th round by the Cleveland. What is their name yet? It's not the Guardians. I'm thinking of
Browns.
Browns. Thank you. Coming up next, Jack Mitchell.
You want to rock? Broadcast House has you covered with rock of the 90s. Wanna rock and roll all night. And more. That is 105.3 The Bone, Lincoln's Real Rock, a broadcast house radio station.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother got life insurance from Ethos, and it only took 10 minutes. And he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit ethos.com/today. Ethos.com/today.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
Judge Napolitano here. Can you believe the chaos we're facing today? Government is out of control. Spending is out of control, and the dollar is dying. It's just a matter of time until digital money replaces cash. It's coming fast. So you need to get educated in other ways to invest and preserve the wealth you already have. Start now by calling Lear Capital at 800-927-2400. Get their free report, The Tipping Point. Learn what rising debt and a digital dollar could mean for your retirement. Do what I did. Buy gold from Lear Capital to protect your wealth. Over 25 years experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. Lear is whom I trust when I buy gold. Get the report and up to $15,000 in bonus gold with a qualifying purchase. Call 800-927-2400. That's 800-927-2400. 800-927-2400.
May 15, 9 a.m. 2 women quietly waiting at the doctor's office. Woman 1 says, "Cold day, huh?" Woman 2, "What's that?" Woman 1, "Kinda cold today." Woman 2, "Yeah, wasn't expecting that." Woman 1, "What is it, 47 degrees?" Woman 2, "No, more like 45. Woman 1, yeah, makes sense. At least it's not raining." Woman 2, "That would be sad." Woman 1, "So sad." Woman 2, "The weather." Woman 1, "Crazy." Please don't waste your small talk. Donate it to foster care, because just talking about the 400,000 kids in foster care can help the 400,000 kids in foster care. Learn more at donateyoursmalltalk.org. Brought to you by Foster More.
It's your weekly rundown of Husker sports with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
And welcome back to the show. My name is Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens. Hello. And we have got, he's already a celebrity. We know that. Yep. But we have the founder, the owner, the proprietor of the Jack Mitchell Softball Experience joining us on the Summit Lawns talk and text line. And I believe I have a box score I can share with you. Jack, do you mind if I share the box score?
Well, I put it out there publicly, so I guess I can't really prohibit you from doing that, unfortunately.
Okay, now you pitched as well. You went hitless 0 for 3. Unfortunately, your team was fell today, 17-5. However, you reported in your post that you gave up 25 hits. By the box score, I got good news. You only gave up 24 hits.
Hey, and my daughter did the official scoring on the Game Changer app, and so we could probably fudge that number. Listen, if I told her to be really mean about errors, not mean, accurate about errors, guys, we're talking like 14 hits, to be honest. But
fair enough.
I don't want to. I'm not here to embarrass any members of the media, like Caleb Henry or anyone like that. Like, there's nothing. There's no way I would want to call out, any of those guys there. So those we'll just call those hits.
I think we played on the same team like 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And we were terrible then. We haven't improved.
We did. You were solid. Man, I remember Joe Scar was a pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, good outfielder. Bishop was okay. Bishop was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think I would say that. I don't think I would say that about Bishop. And JP Kine, he was He's on my team now. He was on that team as well. And
John Baylor, I think, was on that team back in the day.
Baylor, Kevin Cody Thomas was on that team with us.
He was good. He was really good.
He's good. Yeah, he was good. He was very young though. I mean, let's be. He was very young. Like, I mean, Tom, if we would have been that young, we would have been pretty good.
Oh, easily. This was like, what year?
We were at least in our 30s or lower 40s.
Right. This was like 2002, something like that.
It was later than that. I didn't start. It was after I was on the radio. I didn't start on the radio until 06. So
okay,
we're probably talking late on.
All right. So not terrible. So what'd you think? The first annual spring game, Nebraska wins 70-30 because of all the points collected via, chicken eating and strongest man and fastest. It was kind of a weird thing. It was a carnival. It was a football game. What did you think of it?
I don't know. I mean, for the fans' sake, I would just go back to the spring game. If it were my choice as a fan, having been to both of them, I would choose the spring game. It's not that I was interested in some of the kind of side competitions and stuff, but it's really hard to execute those live for the people who are there and kind of understand what's happening. And one of for example, I was there with my son and daughter at it, and one of the things that was a little, I don't know, frustrating is the word, but that they would do the bench press, or they would do a the quarterback contest, or one of the running things, and I was super interested, at least I was, in who the players were that were involved, and there was a roster where you could see it, but you couldn't necessarily tell.
Yeah.
Even who was doing what and who was going at that moment. To me, that would have been better if they had thought about. I think they kind of had to throw some of this together pretty quickly.
Well, at first they thought they were going to do it because they thought they were cutting down to a 105-man roster, and you're worried about players getting poached. And then they learned that maybe they're going to have 125 and 100 to 130 players, and you need. I think originally he thought, I need a place for these players to go. I'm going to put it on film, and maybe other schools can benefit from my players. There were a bunch of things going into this, including the portal, but you're right. It was just thrown together.
It just, I mean, listen, I don't know. I feel a little bad saying it, but I mean, it felt like something that was planned very quickly is what it felt like. And, with that, and you couldn't really avoid that in some ways, right? Because Rohr decided fairly late in the game that they were going to do the scrimmage, and I was glad to see the scrimmage and that being a part of it. But I think everyone who was involved in it had a really difficult job to try and make that something that was a good show for the people who were there. And they did their best of it. But that's not it's not as easy as it sounds like. It's like, hey, we'll just do a media punt catching contest. We'll just do a fastest man. We'll do a quarterback contest. There's a lot that goes into the execution of it that makes it a good show.
Yeah.
Pitcher and head coach of the Jack Mitchell softball experience joining us here on Husker Rewind on 1400 KLIN and 99.3 FM. I want to ask you how, we'll just call it elated, were you to watch Shadur Sanders fall to the fifth round and go to one of the more inept franchises in the NFL?
I mean, first of all, the answer is it was an absolute delight. I mean, that is the answer. And there were times, you guys, where I actually had to check myself as it kept going on, and I got giddier and giddier, and I was shooting off tweets, right? Especially on Friday night, right? When I thought for sure he would go on Friday night, and he kept not going. And I remember, kind of waking up Saturday morning, and I was kind of like, sort of like you wake up, you're regretting what you said the night before. And I was like, am I being too terrible? Am I being too mean about this? And I thought about it for a while. And you guys, you know what I concluded? Nope, I wasn't being too mean. I think it was all earned. I really do. I think it was all. And listen, if the dude was in a family situation where he was needed this money, right? His well-being, his family's well-being depended on it, I think I would feel differently, right? If I didn't feel like a ton of this was legitimately self-imposed, right? Or he was truly being just, in some way discriminated against because he's Deion's son or because of all of those things, I would have a different tune about it. But I don't know, guys, like the more you hear about it, the more it all kind of makes sense the way that it went down.
Yeah.
And he set himself up to be a heel. Let's be honest about this whole thing, right?
He did.
He set himself up to be a heel. He wanted to be that. He absolutely wanted to be that, and this kind of goes along with it. And it was great, man. And I'll tell you who won in this thing. I'll tell you who won out of this entire thing. I would have now, if you would have told me that the Saturday, the third day of the, listen, I'm a huge NFL fan. I'm a huge college football fan. I typically don't sit down and watch the third day of the NFL draft at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. And so had you told me I was watching at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, I would have been kind of surprised. If you told me, my wife, and my 14-year-old daughter were all around the TV watching it on a Saturday, I would have never believed it whatsoever. But this was such a big story. This was so compelling that all three of us were tuned in to the Saturday. We are all watching the fourth round of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
While we're eating lunch on Saturday. The NFL, you guys, the NFL never loses. They will all, it's an incredible story. It's an unbelievably entertaining. I'm glad Shedeur exists. I'm glad Colorado, Deion, everything's more fun when they're around, even though they're villains. So,
there's going to be a 30 for 30 on this for sure, or several documentaries. Absolutely. And you had all these guys like Mel Kiper defending him, and John Bishop said, well, it's because they're all friends with Deion. So they felt obligated to defend Shedeur. Now, he's a great talent. He's a really good talent. And if you were playing running back or wide receiver, you could have that on your team, but you can't at quarterback.
Right. And Mel was doing that, and he wasn't the only one. There were members of the national media, especially as Saturday went on, or excuse me, especially as Friday went on, they were kind of getting more righteously indignant. And I kind of chuckled every time that happened. I'm not sure exactly what their theory is about what was happening, but if they believe that multiple NFL executives are making decisions against their own self-interest to make a point, right, or to stick it to Shedeur or the Sanders family, when in reality he would be the best pick, he would be the one that is most likely to lead their franchise to success and financial gain, all of those things. I mean, that's kind of out there. Like that, I would love to know exactly what would be motivating them to do that. The reality is they had concerns about him. They thought it was going to be difficult. They had concerns about his talent level. They had concerns about his ability to gel with the team, all of those things. None of those are all legitimate reasons not to pick him. So save it with the whole conspiracy theory. Well, he really would have been great. They knew he would have been great in their system. They were just going to prove a point with this. Why? Why would that ever happen, guys? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. One of the highlights to me, and I'm not a big draft watcher, but on Saturday morning, I wanted to tune in because I wanted to watch some of that drama. And also, I was so hoping, and it happened, that Ty Robinson would get chosen before Shedeur did. One of the highlights of the draft, the coverage of it, to me, was the 90 seconds to 2 minutes of commentary about Ty Robinson, not only as a football player, but as a human being following his selection. Jack, give me your thoughts on Ty and on Thomas Fidone that got drafted and the other 6 Huskers that signed free agent deals in the last couple of days.
Ty, it was cool to see him go to the Eagles. Boy, the Eagles feel like 2 years in a row, it just feels like they have made all the right draft picks, and they just won the Super Bowl, right? Which, that's crazy too. But the way that Ty Robinson improved this is what you hope when you bring someone in, right? Is that every year they're improving, they're becoming, and then that between the junior and senior year, they do exactly what Ty Robinson did. And man, they were showing those highlights. You were talking about that, Mike. They were showing highlights after he was picked, and just remembering how dominant he was at parts of this year just made my heart warm once again. And so for him to have moved up to where he did from where he was this season, was a real testament to kind of sticking around and sticking through there for that last senior year. Thomas Fedoni, that's a different story than Ty Robinson, because he never was what you hoped he would be when he came here. And I don't know, I'm not assigning blame on that, but given his situation as a recruit, right? Blue chip recruit, and then obviously dealing with significant injuries that were incredibly difficult, but you kind of thought, well, this last year, he had an okay year. That might be stretching it. He was never the factor you thought that he was going to be. He didn't feel like they used him in a way that was particularly suited to his skills during the year. And you also kind of thought the way that he moved, at least this is what I thought. I shouldn't say you thought, but I thought the way that he moved just looked like a guy who had really struggled with injuries. And it was it was an unfair hand that he was dealt, but that's what it looked like to me when I watched him play. Yeah. There was no way, man. You guys remember that Wisconsin game, right? He jumped off sides Holgerson's first game, or he did a false start.
Got benched.
He got pulled out. He didn't play the rest of the game, and he hadn't done a whole lot during the course, right? I mean, he just hadn't been the player you hoped he would. I would have never dreamed ever that he would have gone to the combine and did what he did, and then got himself drafted. I mean, I didn't think he was even considering going pro at that point. I thought maybe he'd transfer out, but I did not ever dream. And so, like, there is a little bit of part of me that's like, hey, wow, okay, well, if he was that good, if he was that athletic, if he was able to do what he did at the combine, if he was able to do to get drafted, right, where he did, where was the disconnect with his career this year exactly, right?
Yeah. Well, part of it injury. I mean, he's been injured a few times.
But this year, though, to me, and I'm going to throw out there, Jack, one of the things I always thought about him and why he was not as involved as he could have been, was the motor.
Yeah.
That motor didn't run every play.
But he ran a great 40 time, right?
I know, but you would think that would hurt him in the draft, right?
Yeah. Sixth round pick. A lot of people say if you're not taking, fifth round or earlier, you're better off being a free agent. But I do point to the NFL draft is like Fedoni, like the first true tight end taken since Tracy Wistrom, and you had who else? You had Ty Robinson.
Austin Allen.
You had Ty Robinson. Only the second defensive tackle I think taken since the Carlos and Khalil Davis. I mean, if a lot of people, when they talk about Nebraska football, they talk about the draft and the reason they haven't been good, and they probably have a good point. 2 guys taken. Ohio State had 14. I mean, it feels like if you're going to be great in college football, you better get more guys drafted.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we came into the draft thinking that maybe 5 guys would get
right.
it.
Yeah.
And only 2 of them ended up going. I don't know who the most surprising that didn't go was, but Jiminy Christmas a year ago, Tommy Hill was getting rejected in the first round.
Nayor, a lot of people thought he would get drafted.
Well, Tommy Hill still has not signed a free agent deal yet either.
Yeah, what's going on with that? That's odd.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a year ago too, we thought, a year ago at least, we would have thought Gifford would have been a draftee too, and he wasn't. So,
yep. Well, good stuff.
I think you're right though. In terms of Nebraska, we got to be hearing, way more than 2 guys on draft day for Nebraska. That'll be one of the things that eventually happens after this.
Yep, I agree totally. We'll listen in the morning. We always do. Jack and Friends.
Love you guys. So glad you guys are on KLI, and keep it up, and appreciate you having me on.
There you go.
Thanks,
Jack Mitchell of Jack and Friends. What's the name of the softball team that's so good?
The Jack Mitchell Softball Experience.
He didn't invite us to play. You're actually a pretty good stick. He should invite you.
Oh, I have tendons
played in
and
20
joints.
years.
I haven't played in 25 years. And
other than that,
I used to play about 400 games a year, but that was the 26-year-old me.
I was never very good. Jack said I was okay. He's wrong. I was never very good. Let's get the break. Come back with more. It's the show. It's Mike Melby. It's Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind. More on the way.
You're listening to Husker Rewind. Sean Hannity is next on 1499.3 KLIN.
As the fisherman prepares to take a few bass out of the water this spring, the first thing he does is get his crankbaits ready. He has all shapes, sizes, and colors. But it's the short-lipped lures he's looking for, because he knows they'll work best in the shallow water. And he knows the bass will be in the flats at this time of year. He makes sure to gather a good variety of shallow diving cranks, a few that move around a little in the water, and a few that move around a lot. As he ponders the movements of those cranks, the thought may occur to him that lures are like women. Some wiggle and some wobble. But if his wife is around, the sensible fisherman will keep that thought to himself.
Any big box store can sell you the gear, but the gear doesn't catch the fish. You do. If you want to catch more fish, talk to the experts. Buy the gear and get the advice for free at Wolf Tackle, just south of Highway 2 on 48th Street.
I'm Peter Roman at Wolf Tackle. And like you know that fishing's always best right before you got there, and right after you left, we know fishing.
We've been hunting these fields north of Kearney since high school. My buddy Ryan has always been my wingman, the life of the party. But I saw it change, and he got really down. Talked about his life being worthless.
If you know someone who's struggling, talk to them about temporarily storing their guns away from their home, taking care of friends and neighbors. It's what we do in Nebraska. Paid for by the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Music that makes you want to get down and move. KC and the Sunshine Band. Live. Friday, August 8th, Pinewood Bowl Theater in Lincoln Pioneers Park. With special guest, Village People. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss KC and the Sunshine Band.
Military veterans and active duty service members, you could become a certified cyber warrior with just 12 weeks of training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, and IT pros with these skills often enjoy abundant opportunity and a great lifestyle. Protect our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP.
You have so many ways to listen to the Huskers right here on 1499.3 KLIN, but also online at KLIN.com or through the free KLIN app. You can always tell Alexa to play 1499.3 KLIN. So, when you think Huskers,
this ball's ripped into right field. This one is going back. This one is gone!
think KLIN.
Back to Husker Rewind with Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
They're storming the floor. Tim Miles has punched our ticket, Husker fans. It's time to twerk. Let's go dancing.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
That one's roped into left field, and that's over the glove of Martin. Extra bases. And coming around third, being waved home will be Riley Silva. He will score 7 RBIs for Gabe Swanson, and his second double of the afternoon.
Nice weekend for Husker baseball. They win the series over Maryland, improved to 21-23. I think they're now 12th or 11th in the Big Ten. Got to be top 12 to make the Big Ten tournament May 20th through the 25th at Schwab Field in Omaha. If you'd like to prank Shedeur Sanders, his phone number is 555-222-98. Never mind. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, never mind. Dion had the number retired. If you're watching on the stream, you know exactly what we're talking about.
There you go.
You can read it.
It was interesting watching that because it was painful and yet it was hilarious.
It wasn't painful at all.
I remember watching. Well, did you think it was painful watching Brady Quinn in Radio City Music Hall? I think it was like 2007, where he was actually on TV the entire time, and you had to watch every facial expression when he didn't get picked, and yet he still went in the first round. He went 24th to Cleveland. Shedeur went day after day without getting picked. I mean, some people compare it to Aaron Rodgers when he was picked late for Green Bay.
Well, and so the QB room in Cleveland right now consists of Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, who was picked 2 rounds earlier, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson, and Joe Flacco. Now, I get it. Flacco's been collecting Social Security for a couple of years, but he still can move a little bit in the pocket, and he's still got a better arm than Shedeur
I'd
does.
take him as a Vikings fan. I'd take him over J.J. McCarthy right now.
Yeah.
This is what an anonymous, I'm sure you've seen this on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
An anonymous NFL source said, the worst formal interview that I've ever seen or been in my entire life. He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has horrible body language. He blames his teammates. But the biggest thing is he's not that good.
Yeah.
So and that's pretty harsh. The interviews, apparently he didn't come off well at all.
No, and evidently I've not seen or heard the recording of the video, but at some point Cam Ward and Shedeur exchanged words at the combine. And essentially Cam Ward told him, if all I did was throw bubble screens and checkdowns, I'd complete 95% of my passes.
This is what Colin Cowherd said about Shedeur Sanders.
If you have great talent, I'm drafting you. But like something has happened in America where can we just have, is humility the worst thing? You got to put legendary everywhere. How about you play a game? One. Just give me one game.
Yeah.
And then you can put legendary all over your house. I don't care.
I thought it was funny what Mel Kiper just was crying the entire weekend on ESPN.
The NFL has been clueless for 50 years when it comes to evaluating quarterback. Clueless. No idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof. There's proof of that.
How many
they say we know exactly what we're talking about with quarterback? They don't.
I think Kiper had Shedeur ahead of Cam Ward.
Yeah, he did.
As the number one quarterback in the draft.
Yeah.
It was a weak, everybody admitted it was a weak draft. And a very weak quarterback draft.
So numerous college players that were in the process of being drafted got pranked. They got prank phone calls.
I saw the prank. It was a couple of college students that called Shedeur.
No, the son of Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, 21-year-old Jax.
Oh, he's the one that made the call?
Is the one that called Shedeur. But Kyle McCord was another one that got prank phone calls. There were numerous players that got prank phone calls.
This isn't new. It happened, I think, with Caleb Williams or somebody like that.
Yeah,
last
now
year.
the way this works is every player that is essentially potentially going to get drafted is given a burner phone by the NFL. Yeah. And that phone number is only known to literally the GMs of the 32 NFL teams. And what happened was Jeff Ulbrich, who is the DC for Atlanta, had his iPad up and it had a list of the numbers, and his son saw it, jotted down Shedeur's number and thought, this is going to be funny. Now, as much as I don't like Shedeur, this was classless, childish, and just stupid.
Very stupid.
I guess I don't get it, but I'm now the old guy. You and I joked about when we first started the show 3 years ago. We joked about calling it "Get Off My Lawn" because we're both that guy.
We are.
And right now I'm kind of that guy. I'm like, there's nothing about that seemed funny, that seemed like
he asked for most of this.
I don't disagree, but the prank phone call that, and especially being at some point, recognize who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it was okay for anybody else to make a prank phone call, but you're the defensive coordinator, or you're the son of the defensive coordinator of an NFL team, and you think it's a good idea to prank a college player.
I didn't realize I'd seen the video, and I just assumed it was some college student that was doing it.
No, the other ones, I don't know that they've proven or found exactly who was doing or who made the other calls. But I mean, was it the same kid or maybe some of his friends? Possibly, who knows? But I do know that they found out, and Jax actually made a public apology. Says, on Friday night, I made a tremendous mistake. Shedeur, what I did was completely inexcusable, embarrassing, and shameful. So sorry that it took away from your moment. It was selfish and childish.
It was.
Yep. That's
he didn't really have a moment. It was
no.
Probably comic relief, actually. I mean, there was nothing that was going to save that weekend for Shedeur. But they retire the number, and then this happens. I mean, it was kind of the whole legendary stuff. The way that whole room, the draft room, was set up, he was just begging for it. But from all I've heard from some of these NFL execs is he just didn't interview well or try to interview well. There's a difference between just not having the ability to do an interview and being so arrogant that you're just like, your loss. If you don't pick me, you're an employee. When I'm picking you in the draft, I'm picking you as an employee. I want you to be, and especially at quarterback, you better be somebody in that locker room that I can count on. You can't be what he is right now. You can't do it.
And go back to the post-game press conference following the loss to Nebraska last year. A decent question, not a great hard-hitting question, but a decent question from a Colorado beat writer about, the game and the running game and whether or not that their lack of ability to run the football was why he was pressured so often. And his response is a smart ass. How many times did Raiola get hit?
Right.
Huh? What? No, that's where you sit there and, I mean,
all of that is true, but you don't say it.
Exactly.
You don't say it.
After every loss this past season, Dylan Raiola went up and said, "It's on me. I've got to do better."
Yep.
To some extent, like it wasn't that all game or after every loss that it was only me and I've got to do better. But he took responsibility for needing to be better for his teammates. That's what you do. That's what a leader does.
You mentioned Dylan Raiola. This is what Matt Rule said last week about Dylan.
Dylan's, he's 10 steps ahead of where he was, and where he was pretty cool. Even like a day-to-day when there's no pads and you're doing all these 2 minutes, the defensive line can knock down the line. There's no pads in the pockets, and his movement in the pocket, I think, is excellent. His ability to play the next play and move on, his checks, his knowing what he's seeing coverage-wise. Like I said, we're playing a lot different coverages, and maybe we've added some more coverages, and so I think he's able to get through all the coverages. And I've really enjoyed watching him coach the other quarterbacks while they're out there, right? So, Glenn's over there with the other quarterbacks, kind of getting them to play, going through the reads and all that, and then whether it's Jalen or TJ, they're behind, and he's, Dylan's back there, and he's reminding him of things, or we had a weird situation, 2-minute situation today, and he got in the huddle for the first group, and they got in the huddle for the second group. He's like, "Hey, 12 seconds, we have 3 timeouts, catch the ball." So I think just the situational awareness, I think he's doing all of those things at a really, really high level.
I think he's carrying himself differently than last year, and understandably, it was a true freshman last year with leaders already ready-made on this team. I mean, Ty Robinson, I think he was probably the unquestioned leader of the entire team. Came back and played in the bowl game, didn't have to. Would have been drafted the same place he was drafted over the weekend at the NFL draft. But unlike Shedeur, who just kind of thinks of himself as the man, I think Dylan feels like I have to be the man, at least as far as controlling the locker room, controlling recruiting, being the leader, being out in front, not because I want to do it, but because this program needs it. They need a voice. And it's not an arrogant voice. It's just a voice that says, I'm the quarterback of Nebraska. I understand my lineage. I understand who my dad is, who my uncle is, what the expectations are from me and this position. And I'm not shying away from those. And it feels like he's a different guy. You could see it when he spoke at the podium last week. He just looks different. I mean, it was just a month and a half ago that it looked like he was 20 pounds heavier. And when Rule's saying he's just moving better in the pocket, he looks better, I believe it. I mean, I think he knows that football is his thing, and he can't be a 5th-round draft pick. He's got to be the guy. He's got to be a 1st-round draft pick.
So you remember Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, when they made a movie called Basketball?
Yeah.
See, Dylan Raiola is going to be the number 1 pick of foot basketball. I want to throw out a little bit of Nebraska basketball talk. We've got a couple of minutes. We kind of talked a little bit about maybe we can cover this, and I'm looking at the portal. Nebraska picked up another commit this last week, Jared Garcia from the University of Tulsa. 6'7", 220. A
guy
that
6'9".
He's saying 6'7", 220 on his deal here.
Okay.
Maybe he is 6'9".
I never believe heights.
No. Well, as a sophomore at Waverly, I played basketball. I was 5'11". Okay. To this, like, I was as tall now or then as I am now, and I'm 5'9". But yeah, I was 5'11", and I think I weighed like 180.
Right.
I didn't weigh $125.
Never believe heights on the roster.
No.
Never believe them. But I think I would like the pickup if I weren't so concerned about the injury history.
Yeah.
And he's going to do a senior year. Looks like has the ability, about 10 points a game, 4 rebounds, averages a couple shot blocks a game. He's kind of a rim protector, can shoot the three, 31% from 3-point range. I think he can help Nebraska. And you heard John Bishop, he said he likes the class. I like the class. I don't like it like I like Creighton's class.
Yeah. But go through it real quick here. So you've got Garcia.
Yeah.
Kendall Blue, I think, is the one that I'm the most excited about.
I think he's the
St. Thomas.
He's the Bryce Williams replacement.
Yeah.
I think.
Will Cooper, out of Millard South. He transferred back from Air Force. He's just going to be, I believe, a sophomore, so he'll have 3 years to play. I don't know what he brings you. I just don't.
I think he's young in his career.
Yeah, he is. Jamarcus Lawrence obviously coming back. Jamarcus, this is Jamarcus's year. We get it. Whatever happened last year, it happened, man. We're glad you're back. He's a guy that could step into that Bryce Williams role, scoring, if not, maybe not 20 a game, but that could 15. Give us 15 and whatever else you can do. He's probably going to run the point a lot. Ugnis Yarushevicius. I like the guy. He was the MAC player of the year. Yeah, Ugnis Yarushevicius. I had to say Eli Vlisavljevic. I have, because I had to say Eli Vlisavljevic for 2 years. And
he was the MAC. Was he
MAC
Central
player
Michigan
from
MAC
Central
player
Michigan.
of the year? And I think a 16-6 guy.
Yeah, and I think he can provide. What does he do in the Big Ten against the physicality? That's where I'm going to be really kind of wondering if he can put up with it. Having
and you
Rink
put
back, though,
is it ranking him into the game at the same time? Then you got you got Burke still coming off the. I wonder if he's off the bench next year.
He might be. I don't know. And then Price Stanford from Iowa is the other transfer.
And then you've got lots of other guys that can play. Sam's still there. Connor Asijan's still there. Cale Jacobson's still there. Brandon Frager, I think they'd like.
Burke's got to get in shape.
Yep.
That's, to me, that's the key for him for next year.
When he came back from the ankle after he got the ankle, he just wasn't he was never the same. We'll be the same. Same two guys next week. Husker Rewind. We do it every Sunday, 5 to 7. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Save big money on your outdoor project at Menards. Get that long-growing green and